Joining us now is our friend, political consultant, and the author of the blog on at stonezone.com, also lobbyist and strategist, and of course worked with Richard Nixon, the whole thing. Roger Stone joins us. Hey, Roger.
How are you, Steve?
Good. How are you?
Terrific. I'm in Miami Beach. How could you be bad?
I'll tell you, not bad at all. I envy you. I'm here in New York City. But anyway, okay. Before we get to Anthony Weiner, I hope you just heard this. The media talking about this bromance between Chris Christie and Bill Clinton. I am of the opinion that I'm not of the opinion. I think it's possible that Chris Christie knows his only. Now, Rush Limbaugh has been saying, apparently, I just found out today because I was in the car late, and he said, as I've been saying for the past 2 weeks, Chris Christie will seek the presidential nomination as a Democrat. I think what we saw when Clinton hugged Christie in Chicago at the Clinton Foundation thing a couple of weeks ago is a forerunner. I think it'll be a unity ticket, Hillary and Christie. What do you think about that?
I think that's wrong. Look, I'll tell you this. Republicans ought to be worried if Chris Christie runs for president as an independent. Then they really have problems. Look, you got one problem here. I like Chris Christie. He's a Jersey guy. Like you, Steve, I don't agree with him on every issue. In fact, I disagree with him on many. But I happen to like the guy, and I'm also cognizant of the fact that he's the only Republican right now who runs even within hailing distance of Hillary Clinton. Now, to me, Hillary Clinton as president, that's an abhorrent thought in my view. And Chris Christie may be the one guy who I don't agree with on everything who can beat her. Yes, I'd be for Chris Christie over Hillary Clinton any day.
But how does he get the nomination?
I think it's a very difficult path for him. Look, the Republican Party nominating process is still dominated by very conservative voters with a substantial subset of evangelical Christians. I do think the more libertarian-minded, the liberty wing of the party is growing, thanks to the leadership of Senator Rand Paul and others. But the party is not homogeneous. I do think that Christie is viable in the process. It's an uphill process. He'd have to figure out, does he skip Iowa? Does he not skip Iowa? I wouldn't underestimate his prospects in New Hampshire, a heavily Catholic state. But in politics, anything can happen, and it's very early. I'm not prepared to say he can't be nominated. That's for sure.
All right. Well, just by the way, and you wrote a great piece about your disappointment with Christie and the special election and the whole way he handled the death of Frank Lautenberg and the Senate seat. Well, his great former Attorney General that he handpicked to be the Republican in place until October just voted along with the Democrats and 16 other or 13 other Republicans to pass immigration reform. That's not going to sit well with conservatives either.
Well, of course, that gentleman doesn't have to face the voters. Look, I'm one who thinks that seat should have been filled in November of 14 when the term is up, and that Frank Lautenberg's term should have been filled by former Governor Thomas H. Kane as a placeholder who would be called back, frankly, to serve his country one more time, and then give Republicans a shot. If Christie was unwilling to nominate some Republican who wanted to take a shot at running for that seat, also a good idea, but if Christie wanted to be non-political, how about a statesman like Tom Kean? This fellow who's Attorney General, he seems like a very conservative guy. We're not here to debate immigration. Overall, he's certainly a qualified appointment, and I believe he's a very able man, but how much better would it be to have some hungry Republican in there in a Senate seat trying to win it and beat Cory Booker, who is a classic, he's Obama too. I mean, that's the next generation of Obama right there.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's talk about. I don't know who Weiner is the next generation of. Maybe Weiner is the next generation.
I've seen the latest polls. He's ahead, but it's very close. He's ahead by an inch.
You know that everything we say is going to warrant this.
No, in all honesty,
a rim shot.
Steve, I think his hard support will peter out by election day.
right, no, but let's get serious for a second and talk about this. You know, you got the Marist poll, the Quinnipiac poll, and first it showed that he took the first lead over Christine Quinn, who's the current president of the city council, and now then he was even with two other candidates, and now he's down a point. This is going to be a runoff. Nobody's going to gain a majority.
That's absolutely true.
Right.
So first of all, let me illuminate you from my point of view. These polls speak as much about the weakness of Christine Quinn as they do the potential strength of Anthony Weiner or any other contender. A front runner at 24 isn't a front runner. This is anybody's ballgame. I happen to think you have a bum poll here. I suspect that Weiner was, until this headline, probably still a couple points down. Quinnipiac did not show him leading, but within hailing distance of her. Bill Thompson right behind. He's the guy to watch here, in my opinion. It's important to recognize that de Blasio and John Liu, the other two candidates, will still each get in the 8, 9, 10 range, and therefore they'll affect the outcome of the race, even though they themselves can't be nominated. So this is still, this is still a very open Democratic primary, and the outcome of the Democratic primary completely determines whether a long shot like Joe Lhota, Republican Joe Lhota, Republican Libertarian Joe Lhota, has a shot in the general election.
Well, yeah, okay.
Against Christine Quinn,
well,
that's a viable race. Against Anthony Weiner, that's a viable race. Bill Thompson's probably the toughest Democrat to beat because he holds together the old Democratic coalition.
Right, and he's got the support. Right, and he's got the support of the teachers' union right now. He may get the support of other unions.
Americans, a near monolithic African American vote.
Right.
He's got Hank Scheinkoff, who's probably the best Democratic strategist in New York Democratic politics today.
And Roger, 4 years ago, 4 years ago,
in his ear.
4 years ago, he barely lost to Bloomberg after spending no money compared to what Bloomberg spent.
Well, because Steve, I think it's because it has to do with the demographics of the city of New York City. New York City is not a majority white city anymore. The white Catholic suburbs and the white enclaves in Manhattan have shrunk. And the new population is black and Asian and Latino. So it's changing the complexion of New York. Bloomberg spent hundreds of millions for re-election. This guy spent nothing, but everybody who was a person of color voted for him. That's why he became so close. And of course, he got a respectable share of white liberals as well, and probably a few Republicans.
We're talking to Roger Stone here on the Steve Malzberg Show, but let me ask you about this race. Christine Quinn, I think the reason she's dropped so much is not because people are in love with Anthony Weiner or anybody else. I think she's gone so far to the left. She's pushing through this bill. There was a vote today in the city council, and they voted to have a Justice Department oversight for the NYPD. I mean, they're looking to...
The irony of that, of course, is that this is all tailored to the Democratic primary. Democratic primary voters will consider that a victory for more liberal policies regarding keeping our streets safe. These are the same people who will be screaming when crime skyrockets because the police are not being given the tools they need to keep our families and our homes and our businesses and our relatives and friends safe.
No, I understand that.
This is liberal thinking.
Yeah, but I think people like Anthony Weiner, who will not go that route, and probably Thompson, who will not go that route. I think.
First of all, let's be clear about Anthony Weiner. Although I think these numbers in the poll are interesting, he was at 20. His problem is that he has a ceiling before he bumps into people who really don't like him. He's got huge negatives from his, tweet your meat, lose your seat adventure, as I like to call it.
Can you say that on the radio and TV? I guess so.
We just did.
That's funny. I like that. But Uma Abedin, his wife, who stayed in the shadows, Hillary's confidant, who's now under
the woman who's under federal investigation.
I was just going to say she's under federal investigation herself now,
right.
But she was holding now she's holding, and I don't make this up, Women for Weiner events.
Good. I urge all of the women to go there and ask her what she thinks of the plight of the what she thinks is what is her position and her views on the Palestinian situation.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear that. Yuma, let us know.
I would like to hear that too. Hey, listen.
Who are the oppressors, Yuma? You tell us.
Roger, always great to
the
talk to you,
terrorists.
sir. Hey, when you get back to New York and out of the Miami sunshine, stop up the studio. We'll do some time up here, okay?
I'm going to be there next week. So
All
I'll see you.
right. All right. Give us a ring.